Okay, we're on DAF Chaf Aleph and Aleph in Maseches Taanis. We're going to see some amazing stories today. Yeah. Some of them you may be familiar with already. Yeah. The first story is about Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan. Ilfa was a great scholar, though we don't know that much about him as much as we know about Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan rose to prominence, and Ilfa took a different direction in life, as we'll see in just a second. Havugarsi bioraisa and dechikaluhu milsa tuva. They were studying together Torah. That was their occupation, and the problem was that they were living in abject poverty. So Amri nekom v'nezel v'navidiska v'nakaim b'nafshin efes kilo yihya b'cha evyon. They said, you know what, it's enough already. Let's get up, let's go and engage in some business activity so that we can fulfill the pasuk which says that there will not be among you paupers. So Azlu, so what did they go? And Osivu to say Guda Re'iyah. So they go on their journey and they stop to sit under and Habukocharchi Rifta. They went to break bread under a dilapidated wall. I guess they didn't realize how dilapidated it was. Asu tre malache hashares shame Reb Yochanan damer chad lachavre nishti olayu haiguda v'naktalinu shemanichen chaye olam haba v'osken b'chaye shah. All of a sudden, these two angels come along, and they say, Reb Yochanan hears that one angel speaking to its friend saying, let's push this wall over on these two guys and kill them, because they're forsaking eternal life and engaging in temporal life of this world. So Amar le'idach shavkinu de'ika behuchad de'kaima le'shaita. The other angel said, nah, leave him alone. One of these guys is going to rise to greatness, so we have to let him have that opportunity. Rabbi Yochanan shama, Ilfa lo shama. Rabbi Yochanan heard the angel speaking. Ilfa didn't hear it. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan le Ilfa shamar marmidi. Amar le lo. So Rabbi Yochanan turns to Ilfa. He says, "Did you just hear that?" And Ilfa says, "I don't know what you're talking about." So Amar midashami ana ve'ilfa lo shama shmamina ledidi kaima lishaita. So Rabbi Yochanan surmised, he says, if I heard it and Ilfa didn't hear it, it must mean that they were talking about me. I'm going to be rising to greatness. So Amar le Rabbi Yochanan ihader ve'uki b'nafshoi ki lo yichtal evim mikerav haaretz. So Rabbi Yochanan therefore said, and perhaps Ilfa was in earshot, he says, you know what, I'm going to go back. There's another pasuk that says there will never be a lack of paupers in the Jewish people, so if it means that I have to be a pauper, I'll be a pauper. So Rabbi Yochanan hadar ilfa lo hadar, but Rabbi Yochanan went back. He went back to the Beis Medrash and lived a life of poverty while continuing his Torah studies, and Ilfa went to find his fortune. Ada'asa ilfa malach Rabbi Yochanan. By the time Ilfa got back from his business activities, Rabbi Yochanan was made into the Rosh Yeshiva. Now you have to understand, as Rashi points out to us, that becoming a Rosh Yeshiva meant that you hit the jackpot, not just in kavod, but back in the day, they used to give you a nice salary too. In other words, back in the old days, it was really good to be a Rosh Yeshiva. They didn't send the Rosh Yeshiva to raise money. They gave the Rosh Yeshiva money, right? And they made him into a very wealthy man. So the irony here is that they went to find their fortune, and in the meantime, Rabbi Yochanan finds his fortune while sitting in poverty in the Beis Medrash. So Amru lo I asiv mar v'goris lo have a malach mar, and they turned to Ilfa when he comes back, and they said, oh, "It's too bad that you went out to your business. Had you stayed in the Beis Medrash, we would have made you the Rosh Yeshiva instead, because Ilfa was even a greater scholar than Rabbi Yochanan." So Azal tolanafshe beiskaria disfinta. So realizing the irony and the pathos of the situation, Ilfa goes, climbs up to the top of to the crow's nest on a mast of a ship. And he says as follows: Amar iika deshali b'masnis the Ribchi of Reb Oshe v'lo pashtina leimi masnisin nafilna meiskaria disfinta v'tavana. He says, I want you to know I still got it. I'm still a great scholar, and I'll prove it to you. If there's anyone who can challenge me by citing a brisa that was authored by Reb Oshe and Reb Chia, who were students of Rebbe, and I fail to find the connection to a brisa that was authored by their teacher Rebbe, I'll jump off this mast and kill myself. Right? Basically, he was challenging anyone to see if they could stump him. So asa hahusaba tanale haomer tenu shekel lebanai b'shabes v'hein ru'uyin laseis lahem sela nostim lahem sela. So an elderly man comes over and he says, well, listen, here's the following brisa. A man on his deathbed is giving his last bequest to his children, and he says, I want you, and he speaks to the custodians of his estate, and he says, the estate belongs to my children, but I want them to be provided for with a budget. So therefore, every week I want you to give them a shekel for their needs. What happens, however, if their needs are larger than a shekel? There are twice that amount, which is a selah. So the halacha is you should give them what they need. Give them a selah, even though he has said a shekel a week. The im amar al titnu lahem el shekel ein nosnu el shekel. If, however, he says emphatically, do not give them anything more than a shekel, then he means to be taken literally, and he wants them to only get a shekel. In the first statement, really, he was only just trying to convey that let my sons, work. I want them to work hard, so give them a shekel a week. He doesn't mean to impoverish them if they can't make it. So he understands you'll give them more, right? But the second statement is no, they only get a shekel, and that's it. And if they have to live in poverty or if they have to starve, tough luck, right? And finally, im amar mesu yirshu acherim tachtehem bein shamar tnu bein shamar al titnu ein noslam hela shekel. If finally he says, regardless of the way he phrases his phraseology, but if he says, and if my children die, I want party X to inherit from them, so then he clearly means that he wants the estate to remain as flush with cash as possible. And so therefore, if he said, give them a shekel a week, you take him literally. He wants to preserve the assets of the estate so that there could be another heir potentially after his children. So the bottom line is that, so the question is, where do you find an allusion to this halacha in any of the Mishnayos that were taught by Rabbi? So Amar Lei, Ha-mani, Reb Meir hi da Amar mitzvah l'kaim divrei hames. And so Ilfa said, oh, that's an easy one. That goes according to the Mishnah, which quotes Reb Meir, who says that it's a mitzvah to fulfill the desires of the decedent. Meaning that, halachically, technically, the estate belongs completely to the children. If they were to go to court, they could demand to completely exhaust all of the bank account of that estate and take it for themselves. What right do we as the custodians have to limit with an allowance? It's their money. So therefore, the answer is that it's a mitzvah l'kaim divrei hames, even though it's their money, but there's a mitzvah to fulfill the wishes of the decedent, and that's why you're allowed to limit their funding in this way. So the Ilfa basically answered the question correctly, just to demonstrate that he still had it. But nevertheless, the story ends there. The bottom line is that Ilfa went to seek his fortune, and obviously the message of the Gemara is that if you really have potential for greatness, don't squander it and go into business. You should become a Rosh Yeshiva, but realize that, you're taking a risk because not everyone gets to be the Rosh Yeshiva. When Jews came from the old country, from Europe, both before the war and after the war, many of them didn't have that opportunity. Many of them didn't have two nickels to rub together, but still many of them were great Talmidei Chachamim. Some of them had learned in the finest yeshivas in Europe, but they had to provide for their families. So Nebuch, you can relate to this idea. So Amru Lav al Nacham Ish Gamzu Shahayasuma Mishtei Einav Gida Mishtei Einav Kita Mishtei Ragla V'chol Gufa Molei Shchin V'hayamutul Beveis Re'ua V'ragla Mitavs Menachem B'safolim Shalmayim Kedei Shelo Yalu Alav Nemolim. Next story, Nacham Ish Gamzu. He was in pretty bad shape. The Gemara explains that towards the end of his life, he was blind in both eyes. He had both arms amputated, both legs amputated, was basically lying in bed as a stump of a human being, and the bed, which he was lying on because he was completely defenseless, had each leg of the bed in a bucket of water so that the ants couldn't crawl on him, and furthermore, his whole body was filled with boils. So Pamechas Haisa Mitasu Munachas Beveis Re'ua Bikshul Talmidim Lefanos Mitasu V'Achar Kach Lifnos Esakelim. So because his house was in such a dilapidated state, his students, realizing that the house could collapse at any moment, they said, Rebbe, let's get you out of here, and then we'll get all the furniture out. So Amar Lahem Banai Panuas Akelim V'Achar Kach Panuas Mitasi Shemuftach Lachem Kolzman Shani Babayis Ein Habayis Nofel. So he said, no, listen, you better take out the furniture first, because I can tell you, I have an assurance from Hashem that as long as I'm in this house, the house will not collapse. So Pinuas Akelim Achar Kach Pinuas Mitas V'Nofel Habayis. So that's exactly what happened. They took out all the furniture first, and they took out Nacham Ish Gamzu. The second they take him out, the house collapses.
Why did he have to leave it all if he had to guarantee it wasn't going to collapse?
Because Ein Somchen Al Hanes. At some point, the Talmidim, it could also be that even though he felt that he could be Somech Al Hanes, once the Talmidim discovered that he was such a miracle man, he felt it wasn't sneas for him to continue relying on that. It's a good question, Mendel. Amr lo talmid of Rebbe v'chimei acher shetzadek gomer ato lama also l'chakach. So they said, Rebbe, we don't understand. You're obviously a great tzaddik. This miracle is being done for you. Why then did you deserve to have such physical affliction? Amr lahem banai ani garamti la'atzmi. It's my own fault. I was the one who brought this upon myself. Shapam echas hayisi mahalich bederech lebeis chami v'hayaimi masu gimel chamorim echad shal meichel ve'echad shal mishta ve'echad shal minei megadim. He says, once I was traveling to my father-in-law, and I had 3 donkeys that were laden with, tremendous wealth, one laden with food, one laden with beverage, and one laden with dessert sweets. So ba'ani echad va'amad li bederech va'amar li Rebbe parneseni. Amarti lo hamtenat she'efrok min hachamor. So a poor man comes along to me on the side when I'm in the middle of unloading my loads, and he says, Rebbe, please give me some tzedakah, I'm hungry. I said, just wait a minute, I'm in the middle of unloading. When I finish unloading, I'll be able to give you. Lo hispakti lifrok min hachamor ad sheyatzasa nishmaso. But unfortunately, the guy was starving and he died while I was in the middle of unloading. I never had a chance to feed him. Halachti v'nafalti al panav v'amarti einai shalochasu al einecha yasumu yadai shalochasu al yadecha yizgadmu raglai shalochasu al raglecha yizkato. I was so filled with despair. I fell on his face, on his lifeless corpse, and I said, my eyes, which did not care enough about your eyes, they should be blinded. My hands, which did not care enough about your hands, should be cut off. My legs, which did not care enough about your legs, should be amputated. And I still was inconsolable until I said, may my whole body be filled with boils. I made this decree upon myself. So the students say, woe are we that we have to see you in such a sorry state. Just the opposite. Woe would I be if you did not see me this way, because tzaddik goes about Kodesh Baruch Hu Mekayim. I was the tzaddik and I decreed. Woe would I be if Hashem did not listen to me. This is a sign that Hashem loves me because He fulfilled my desires. Why Taka was he called Nachum Ish Gamzu? Because anything that would happen in life, he would say, this too is for the good. Amru man Yezel Nachum Ish Gamzu de Melumad Benisinu. One time the Jews had to send an appeasement offering to the Caesar, and so they said, who's going to take it? We'll send Nachum Ish Gamzu. Miracles happen for him, so we're sure that something good will happen. So Shadru biyadei mole sifta da avonim tovos umargolios. So they send him a chest filled with precious stones and pearls. Azul basbe hahudira belayla kamu hanach diyure b'shaklinu l'sifte umalunu afra. So he went and lodged at a certain place, and the innkeepers went ahead, realizing that he had a valuable chest, opened it up, spilled out its contents, filled it with earth, and closed it up. So kimata hasam sharinu l'sifta chazanu demalo afra bo malkal miktalinu l'kulu amar kamachaychu biyehudoi. So he brings the chest. They open it up in the presence of the Caesar. Caesar fills with dirt. The king wants to kill them. He says, what this delegation of Jews, they're mocking me. Amar Gamzu Latova. So Nachum Ish Gamzu says, I'm sure this is for the good. Something good must come out of this. So Asa Eliyahu Admi Le Kechad Minayu Amar Lahu Dilma Ha-Afra Me Afra De Avram Avu Hanu Dechi Havashari Afra Havu Saife Gili Havu Giri. That Eliyahu Navi masquerades as one of the Romans. He appears before the king and says, wait a minute, not so fast, your majesty. Maybe this is the magic dirt like that comes from their ancestor Abraham. Because Abraham, when he went out to war, he used to take pieces of dirt, and it would magically turn into swords in midair. And when he would take clumps of earth, clods of earth, and throw them, they would turn into arrows. So dichsiv yitain ka'afar charbo, or pebbles maybe, yitain ka'afar charbo kekashni DAF kashta. That's what the pasuk says in Yeshaya, that he shall place like dust or like earth his sword, and like straw turns into a bow and arrow. So hab yachada medinta de lo matzalamich b'shabbat kuminei v'kavshuha. So Taka, that's what happened. There was a certain region or certain city-state in the empire that was rebelling, was difficult to conquer. So they said, you know what, let's take this as part of our weaponry and we'll see if it works. They tried it, and taka, that's the magic dirt, worked, and they were able to conquer the city-state. So, as a sign of appreciation, the Caesar orders the chest to be filled up with precious gems and pearls, and sends him off with great fanfare. Ki asu bisu be'ahu diura. So on his way back to the yishuv, to the Jewish community, he lodges at the same inn. So Amrulei mai isus bahadach da'avdilach yikara kulei hai. So they say to him, obviously he's being, I guess, probably escorted by great Roman dignitaries, and they say to him, what did you do that you were sent home with great fanfare? So Amr lahu mai deshaklu mehacha amati lahasam. He says, well, listen, whatever I took from this place, I brought there, and that's why I got such covet. So Sasru l'dirayu v'amtinu l'bei malcha. So they ended up digging up the whole area until they actually ended up destroying their entire inn, digging up the earth underneath, and they brought all the earth underneath the inn to the Caesar, thinking that it was the magic dirt. Amrulei hayafra da'isi hachamididanu, but kuah v'lo ashkachuah v'katlinu lahanach diyurai. They said, bring it to the Caesar. They said, this is the magic earth that Jew brought to you. King tests it, doesn't work. So he had them all executed. And that's the end of that story. Let's go on. Now we have the Mishnah. Yeah, well, crime doesn't pay. It's probably another moral of the story. Ezuhi dever ir hamotziach chamesh meos ragli v'chulei. What is the definition of a plague? The Gemara had said, Mishnah had said that if you have 3 people dying over the course of 3 days in a city of 500, so that proportion of 3 out of 500 dying over 3 days, that's a sign you have a plague. It's a reason to institute a Taanis. Tanu Rabbanan, Ir hamotziach chamesh meos ve'elef ragli kagon kfar ako v'yatzu hemena tisha mesim b'shlosha yomim ze'achar zeh hareza dever. He says, if you have a city that's a large city like Akko, that has 1,500 inhabitants, if you have 9 people dying in 3 days, so then that's a sign of a plague. It's just really multiplying the proportions by 3. It's 3 to 500 or 9 to 1,500, right? So, however, biyom echad o b'daled yamim ein zadever. But if they die all on the same day, so that's a one-time occurrence. That's not a plague. And if they die over 4 days instead of 3 days, that's already too far spread out to be a concentrated plague, and it's not as much of a concern. The ir hamotziach chamesh meos ragli kagon kfar amiko v'yatzu mimena shlosha mesim begimel yomim ze'achar zeh hareza dever. Another example is if you have a smaller town like Amiko, which has 500 residents and 3 people die over the course of 3 days, that's also called dever. But biyom echad o bar b'yomim ein zeh dever. But if they die over 1 day, or if they die over 4 days, that's not a dever anymore. Now, derokras ir hamotziach chamesh meos ragli hava v'yatzu mimena shlosha mesim biyom echad. Here's a story. There was a town called Derokras. It had 500 people, 500 inhabitants. 3 people died over 3 days. Over 1 day, rather. Only died on 1 day. So Gaza Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda Taanis, Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, who seems to have lived in that area, decreed a fast. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Keman Kerav Meir. The Amar Richek Negichos of Chayev, Kirik Negichos of Lo Kol Shekain. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, in trying to support the opinion of Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, who was his colleague and his friend, he says it must be that you paskin like Reb Meir, because Reb Meir in Maseches Bava Kama, the Mishnah and the Gemara talk about how do you establish an animal as being a habitual goring animal, because the halacha changes if the animal is habitual versus non-habitual, a muad versus a tam. So how do you establish it? So Rabbi Yehuda says it has to gore 3 times over the course of 3 days. And Reb Meir says, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that if it gores in 1 day 3 times, it's not enough? Adarabba, it's a kal v'chomer. If goring 3 times over 3 days establishes it, then surely if it gores 3 times over a shorter time span, that surely will establish it as a goring animal. And the same thing would be true here. If 3 people die over 1 day, that's even more of a reason to establish it as a plague. And therefore you must hold like Rabbi Meir. So Amalei Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Leikomar Leisi Legaban. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, you're such a great Chacham, you should come and live with us. Come into our town where there's more Torah, there's more stuff going on. So Amar Le Tanina Rabbi Yossi Omer Lo Makoma Shel Adam Mechabdo Ela Adam Mechabedis Makoma. He says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come because I have a tradition that it's not a person's place that gives him honor, but rather the person who gives honor to his place. So it doesn't matter where I am. If I have Torah where I am, because I have Torah within me, that's all that counts. Shekain Matzinu Bahar Sinai Shekol Zman She'ashchina Shruya Olav Amra Torah Gamatzam VeHabarkal Yiru El Mul Hahar Hahu Nistalka Shchina Mimenu Amra Torah Bimshoch Hayov El Hema Ya'alu Vahar. He says because the Torah says that when the Shechina was on the mountain, the Torah says that no animals can graze anywhere near the mountain. But as soon as the Shechina was being removed, so Hashem said, as soon as the Shechina leaves, everything goes back to normal. So you see that if the Shechina, which is where Torah study is, wherever I am is where the Shechina will be. So, and it could be, like he was also trying to explain to him, my place needs Torah also. Where I am, they need the support of Torah study, so I need to stay where I am to bring kavod to that place. V'chein matzinu ba'oel moed shebamidbar shekol zman shehu natui amar Torah v'shalchu min hamachana kol tzarua. But and furthermore, another example of this is when the Mishkan was in the desert, the Torah says that no person who's tameh is allowed to come near the camp. But once they lifted up the parochas to begin lifting up the tents and to start traveling, so then any zav or mitzvah, any tameh person could go in that area. So you see very clearly that it's not the place that defines the kavod, that defines the kedusha. It's the person who defines the kedusha and the kavod for the for the place. Right. That was the first example. So Amar Le ihachi nekom ana legabe mar. So if that's the case, but I love you so much because you were such a great defender of my Torah, so says Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, let me come to you. So Amar Le mutav yavo mana ben pras eitz mana ben mana v'la aliva mana ben mana eitz mana ben pras. He says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says no, that's not derech eretz. He says you and I are great scholars. We agree on that, but your father was a greater scholar than my father. So better that a half a loaf comes to a person who's the son of a half a loaf comes to the person who's the son of a full loaf instead of the other way around. In other words, I should come to you instead of you coming to me because it's not derech eretz. You have greater yichus than I do. We don't know the end of the story. It sounds like Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was prepared to go to Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, or perhaps he just used that as a pretense to just leave things status quo. Next, Besura havas davrasa b'shivavusei derav lo havas davrasa. This next story is in the city of Sura, where we know Rav lived. It was a big city. There was a plague, but in the small shchuna, the small neighborhood of Rav, the plague was not there. So people savru mina mishum zechusei derav denafish, but ischazei lebechelma Rav denafish zechusei tuva hamilsa zutra leilarav. So people thought that it was in Rav's chus that there was no plague in his neighborhood. That night they all had a dream that was revealed to them. No, Rav's Zechus should stop the plague. That's a trifle. Rav's Zechus is so great, Hashem would not dip into that amazing account in order just to protect the people from a plague. It's like saying, if you have a small project, you need to fix a stender in the shul, so go to the richest person in town. You don't do that. No, that's not the, you go to somebody of a lower zuchus in order to be able to take care of the smaller need. So Ela mishum hahu gavra d'shayil mora v'zivul l'kvura. But rather it's because there was a yid in that neighborhood, in the same neighborhood where Rav lived, that he used to have a shovel and a hoe that he used to lend out to people to bury the dead. So because of that chesed, Hashem protected the city from a plague. And by the way, it's midah kineged midah, it's measure for measure. Because he took care of the dead, Hashem protected them from having people die in that neighborhood. Another similar story is in the town of Derokras. There were fires that were breaking out. Maybe it was very, very dry. But in Rav Huna's neighborhood, there was no fire. So Savra Mina B'schus the Rav Huna, the Nafish, Ischazilu B'chelma Haizutra Leila Rav Huna. So people thought, again, it was because of Rav Huna's Zechus. And then they were shown in a dream that night, no, it's got nothing to do with Rav Huna. His account is so huge, Hashem wouldn't take from his account for that, but rather, Elamishum Hahi Itza de Mechamemes Tanura Umeshayla L'Shivavuse. But rather, it's because there was a woman in Rav Huna's neighborhood that she was a balas chesed. She kept her oven warm all week, even though she didn't need it to stay warm all week, so that her neighbors would have the ability to cook. And there too, because she kept the fire burning, it was midah kineged midah. The fire did not harm them. Amrulei l'Rav Yehuda asu kamtzi. So another story is they told Rav Yehuda, the locusts are coming. So Gazer Tanesa, he decreed a fast. So Amrulay lo kam afsidan. They said, Rav Huna, it's not necessary. This particular species of locusts, it's not so formidable, it's not so terrible. It'll be okay. So Amr Lahu Zavda Aisi Bahadayu. So what do you mean? They're going to bring suitcases with them? They're going to bring provisions with them? Like it from Mizvadot, right? I think it's the same shoresh. What the locusts are bringing supplies with them that they don't need to eat our crops? Of course they're going to damage our crops. Amr Leila Rav Yehuda Ika Mosana Bechaziri Gazer Tanesa. So another story is they told Rav Yehuda that there's a pig. The pigs are dying from some kind of plague or infestation. So immediately decreed a fast. So Nema Ksavar Rav Yehuda Maka Mishulachas Bimin Echad Mishulachas B'chol Aminim. So maybe that implies that Rav Yehuda holds that if you have one species of creature that is afflicted, that's a sign that it could cross over to other species as well. So, and which is the subject of a discussion. So it sounds like Rav Yehuda holds that yes, it does cross over from one species to another. So the Gemara says, "Lo shiny chaziri dedamin me'ayu lebinei inshi." No, it's different because the intestines of pigs are very similar to human intestines, right? Bob, you can help us out over here, right? There's certain parts of the pig, like we use pig valves for the heart, and when you go to medical school, don't they dissect pigs because
we use them for research.
Used for research, right? Because there's certain anatomical similarities, and that's why Rav Yehuda felt, because he knew medicine, that if there's a certain kind of disease that pigs are developing, this could transfer to humans as well.
Swine flu, trichinosis, right? Amrulei l'Shmuel ika mosana bechazoi.
So they told Shmuel that there's some kind of death plague that's happening in the town of Chazoi. So Gazer Tanesa, so he decreed a fast, even though Chazoi was very far away. So Amrulei v'hamerchak, they said to him, why are you worried? It's so far away. So Amr Lekam Abara Hacha the Pasiklei. He said, what? There's a barrier. Where's the barrier that's going to stop it from traveling? Of course, we have to worry it's going to travel. Amrulei Rav Nachman Ika Mosana Ba'aret Yisrael Gazer Tanes. A similar story. Rav Nachman lives in Bavel. They tell him there's a plague in Eretz Yisrael, so he decrees a fast. Amar Im Gevira Loka Shivcha Lokolshkin. And his argument was that if the matron is afflicted, then surely her lowly handmaid will also be afflicted. Eretz Yisrael is more chashuv than Bavel. If there's a plague in Eretz Yisrael, that does not bode well for Bavel. So Taima de Gevira v'Shivcha, Hashivcha v'Shivcha lo. It implies that the rationale was because it was Eretz Yisrael. But by implication, if it was another town in Bavel that was far away, Rav Nachman would not have felt the need to decree a fast. How does that stem with what Shmuel did? Shmuel decreed a fast even though there was a plague in another town in Bavel that was far away. But it sounds like from Rav Nachman that the only reason to decree in Bavel is if it's in Eretz Yisrael first, because of the importance of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara answers, Shiny Hasam Kaven Deika Shayarasa the Lavi Vahasya Bahade. The answer is that the reason Shmuel decreed a fast is because there was a caravan that would travel regularly from one town to the next, and therefore there was a greater likelihood that the plague was going to travel with the caravan. Right? In a situation with Rav Nachman, there was not a regular caravan that went from Eretz Yisrael to where Rav Nachman was living, and therefore, were it not for the fact that it was Eretz Yisrael, he wouldn't have felt the need to decree a fast. Abba Umna, now look at the next story about another great tzaddik. His name was Abba Umna. His name was Abba, the bloodletter. Umna means that you're a professional. A professional what? So in those days, you know what the barber poles. What are the barber poles?
Right. Bloodletting.
That was the sign for a bloodletter, because a barber was the professional of the town. He cut the hair, right? He cut the hair, and he was the bloodletter, the sheriff, the doctor, right? The moil, the dentist, right? Okay, so he did all of those things. Those are the good old days, right? Right. So Abba Umna, so he was the bloodletter of the town. Hava asi le shalma mimisifta derakia kol yoma. Ula abaya kol malayoma de shabta and lareva kol malayoma de kipure. So we're going to start this story. We'll finish it off tomorrow. So Abba Umna used to get regular visits on a daily basis, what's known as the Mesivta Derakia, from the heavenly entourage. Now, what that means, it could have been that Eliyahu Navi would come to him, it could be the Malachim came to visit him. We have many stories of tzaddikim being visited from the Mesivta Derakia. But he used to get visits on a daily basis.
Abaya got visits on a weekly basis every Erev Shabbos, and Rava would only get a visit on an annual basis every Erev Yom Kippur. So Hava Kachal Shadaite de Abaya Mishum de Abba Umna. Abaya, realizing that he's only visited once weekly and Abu Umna is visited daily, he has Chalisha Sadas. He says, "Oy, what am I? I must be like I'm chopped liver. If this guy's getting visited daily, then what am I doing wrong?" So Amrulei lo matzis lemiyavid ka'uvdei. So he receives a message from the angels. They said to him, "You could never match his greatness." Why? Because umay hava uvdei da Abu Umna dechi hava avid milsa hava machis gavri lechud v'nashi lechud. So first of all, he had a waiting room where people would come to let blood, but he had separate waiting room for men and separate waiting room for women. That was the first act of tznius. Ve'isle levusha de'ispe karna dahavis bezia ki kusilta ki havis asya le'itzisa hava malbishla ki hechi delo nistakel ba. So another act of tznius is that he had a certain kind of garment that was where and attached to this garment was the horn or the needle that he used to puncture the flesh in order to extract the blood from the veins, right? And so the way he did it is that he draped it over a woman's arm so that he would not have to see her naked arm when he was letting blood out of tznius purposes. That was his next act of greatness. Okay, the islay duchta de tzniya de shadi be pshiti the shakel, the islay shadi bay, the lesbe lo michsaf. And also another act of great humility or great privacy that he did is that he had a pushka. He had a pushka, and this box was for payment, and whoever had money would put money in the box after the bloodletting. And whoever didn't have money didn't put money in the box, and he didn't see who was paying, who wasn't paying on their way out. And this way you wouldn't embarrass people. And ki have isrami leitzurva mirabanan agra mine lo shakel ubasar dekoy yoav le pshiti. And furthermore, when a rabbi would come, then he would not only would he refuse to take a payment, but after the end of the bloodletting, he would give the rabbi some money. So va'amar le zil bari nafshach, and he would say, "Go abi gesund," right? Go and be healthy. That's like the story about the rabbi who goes to get a haircut, and the barber says, "No, there won't be any payment today." So, you know the joke, right? So the minister goes and he gets a haircut, and the next day he leaves a stack of 10 Bibles on the doorstep of the barber shop. The rabbi gets a haircut for free, and the next day there are 10 rabbis at the doorstep of the barbershop. So Yom Echad, let's see, it's an old story. Okay, Yom Echad, Shader Abaye Zuga de Rabbanon Lemivtike. So Abaya feels like let me see what this guy's all about. Let me test him, see if he's really as great as they tell me from Shemayim. So he sends a pair of his students to test Abu Umna. Osvinu v'achlinu v'ashkinu umachluhu bistarki belelia. So Abu Umna is so hospitable, he gives them to eat, because brings them in, gives them to eat and to drink, and gives them lodging, and he gives them this beautiful, very soft blanket so that they can sleep on at night. So l'tzafra karchinu v'shaklinu v'kamu v'nafgulu l'shuka. So the next morning they roll up the blanket, they take it out into the shuk in order to sell it. And they meet up with Abu Umna in the marketplace. Amrulei rather, Lishaimei Mar Heichi Shavu. They say to him, "You see this blanket that we've got here? How much do you think it's worth?" So Amr Lahu Hachi Vahachi. He said, "I think it's worth this amount of money." So Amrulei V'Dilma Shavu Tvei. How do we know that you're telling us a good price? Maybe it's worth more. So Amr Lahu Bahachi Shaklinu. He said, "I know what it's worth. I know what I paid for it." So Amrulei didach nihu v'shaklunu minach. They said, "Well, this is your blanket. We actually took it. We pilfered it from your house." So Amrulei b'matusa minach b'may chashadetinon. They said to him, "Please, we're so impressed with your behavior. Please tell us, what did you suspect when you saw the blanket missing, and now you see us in the marketplace with your blanket? What were you thinking?" So Amrullahu amina pidyon shvuyim iklulu l'rabbanon v'ichsifu l'meimerli. I figured you must have the mitzvah of pidyon shvuyim, which is the highest mitzvah, highest priority of tzedakah, and you're too embarrassed to tell me how much money you needed, so you decided to take the blanket. So fine. So Amrulei hashta nishkalin umar. So they said, "Well, now that you know it was all a ruse, here's your blanket back." So Amar Lahu, no. Me'ahu shaita aschetinu midaitoi litzdaka. So he said, no, I'm sorry. Once you took it, I basically made it hefker in my head. I said, listen, be gesund, it should be for tzedakah, and let them use it for a good purpose. And therefore, no, now you take it. You don't need to do pidyon shvuyim today. You'll use it for some other tzedakah for tomorrow. We'll hold the story for now. Have a wonderful